Whether the team is performing clean or unsightly, we'll cover it all here on Washington Football Nightly. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, with Washington's dramatic 34-30 come-from-behind victory over the Atlanta Falcons, I think one thing is for certain at this point. Taylor Heinicke has put himself in a great position in the driver's seat of keeping this job once Ryan Fitzpatrick is back from injury and ready to return, and also giving himself a realistic shot of being the guy moving forward. Now, I think it's getting close to the point now where the team just believes in Taylor Heinicke. You know, I don't know if you guys got to see the locker room after the game. Ron gave out a few game balls, the first of which was to DeAndre Carter, the second of which, who is from the Atlanta area, the second of which was to Terry McLaurin, who had a monster game, and without Terry's production and contribution, we're not even in that game. 2 touchdowns, 123 yards on 6 grabs. And, of course, Taylor Heinicke, you know, close from the area, close, I think it was 45 minutes away from where the stadium is located, you know, had family and friends in attendance. He talked specifically about having his sister and brother-in-law there, and that's where he was sleeping, on their couch, you know, when, you know, he was waiting for that call from the NFL to, you know, to resume his career, and it seemed like it wasn't coming. And so it was emotional for him. You know, you could tell that it really was something that he'll never forget the rest of his life. You know, no matter how this goes, that'll be one of those memories that he'll cherish for the rest of his life. That said, this is his second come-from-behind victory in as many opportunities. It's his second win in 3 starts, so he's 2 for 3 right now. And they believe in Taylor Heinicke, and you could argue both games that he has led this team from behind. If he doesn't play at the level that he ultimately played in those 2 contests, we're not in those games to begin with, and we don't stand a chance of winning them. The defense was awful in both of those games. The defense has been awful in just about every single game outside of week 1. That now looks like somewhat of an aberration. And we were complaining about week 1, and the Chargers only scored 20 points. And we were complaining about week 1 because that's not what we had signed up for defensively. We take week 1 and the production we got out of the defense. I think we sacked Justin Herbert maybe twice in that game, and we forced 2 turnovers. We haven't forced a turnover since that game, and they only scored 20 points in that game. I think we take that performance 10 times over based off what we've seen moving forward, because we haven't had a performance that's even remotely close to week 1, even though the Chargers seemed like they possessed the football for the entire game. We haven't had a performance that mirrors that or has even come close to it since. And Heinicke's performance against the Giants and this game against the Falcons was spectacular, and you could argue was the biggest reason as to why we even had a chance in the first place. So with that said, you can see that there's a building confidence in Taylor Heinicke amongst the players, the staff. You know, Rivera said when he tossed him his game ball, he's a little unorthodox, you know. He's a little different, essentially, is what he's saying. And his methods aren't necessarily ideal or what you would coach up. But he finds a way to get it done. You know who I'm talking about. He tossed him the ball. He said, come up here, man. So I think they're starting to realize that he's got a specific skill set. You know, you can't, that's something you don't see in practice. You know, so practice is never going to be his best friend. So if you're talking about having a competition, Taylor Heinicke isn't going to win a competition in practice, because what he does best is improvise. What he does best is make something happen off schedule. It's not always going to be pretty, and the end result isn't always going to be ideal, okay? We've gotten lucky a couple of times. Let's not fool ourselves. But it's what makes Taylor Heinicke Taylor Heinicke. And he said he grew up watching Brett Favre. They were Packers fans. You can tell. His game looks a lot like Brett Favre's. It's very similar. And remember what Brett Favre was. He was an interception machine. At one point, think he led the NFL in the most career interceptions. He may still hold that NFL record as we sit here today. I'm not sure if anyone's overtaken him or not, but at the end of the day, Taylor Heinicke plays a brand of football that lends itself to the reckless side of things, but it also lends itself to giving your team a chance even when things aren't set up perfectly for them to get it done. And that's what I've been talking about with the quarterback position. Like, those of you who wanted Mac Jones, that's fine. And our offensive line has proven that they can protect. You can stay in the pocket with this offensive line. They've been stellar to start this season. Outside of week 1, the offensive line has actually been really good. However, I don't want a guy that has to do everything from the pocket. That's not where the league is trending. The league is moving away from that. Now, if you find a guy that can be surgical from the pocket, he's not as mobile as you would like, but when he's in the pocket, you can't stop him, so be it. But the game is moving away from that. The game is moving towards guys that when things break down or when your first and second reads aren't there and the pocket's starting to crumble and you got to get out of there and make something happen, you need a guy that can make something happen off schedule, off platform, off of the script. And that is what Taylor Heinicke brings to the table. And even if he's not the quarterback of the future, I want a guy that can do some of the same things that Taylor Heinicke can do with the football, that can make plays when something's not there initially and the play starts to break down. This guy can either make it happen with his legs or he can extend the play and make it happen with his arm. And we saw him do that in a major way, more so than the Giants game. Remember the Giants game, he was somewhat surgical from the pocket. There wasn't a lot of movement from Heinicke in that game. This was the polar opposite of what we got in that Giants game. And remember, after the Buffalo debacle, I was bitching and complaining about him not moving enough. I said, hey, this is who you are. Use your legs. You have to extend plays because that's who you are. That's why we fell in love with Taylor Heinicke last year in the playoff game, because he could do things outside of the pocket that a lot of quarterbacks can't. And you didn't see enough of it. And he said, I'm going to do more of that after the Buffalo game. And we saw it against the Falcons. He used his legs, did a good job of getting down. I thought there were a couple of times where I'm like, dude, you're sliding 2 yards before you need to slide. Get some more. And I don't want him taking that shot. And it's better to get down too early than too late, because if you go too late, you can end up like Andy Dalton against us last year in that first game where he tries to slide at the last minute and John Bostic damn near decapitates him and now he's out with a concussion. You don't want that. I'd rather him slide early, avoid any contact, than slide too late. But there were a couple of times where I'm like, hey, Taylor, you could have got another yard or two, man. All right, now it's 2nd and 3. It could have been 2nd and 1, or it could have been a first down. But, hey, at the same time, you could bring up 3rd and 2, or you could go for the first down and lose your quarterback. I'd much rather have 3rd and 2 and try to convert that. So I thought he did some really good things, but more importantly, he's put himself in the driver's seat. He's put himself in a position to not only take a stranglehold of this quarterback position for the remainder of this season, but he's giving himself a chance to be the guy moving forward. Now, he's still a ways away from declaring that. And I think he's going to have, if you're looking around the league right now, you know, on a Tuesday, this is the day where you get a lot of the interesting information, okay? Things that aren't important, because there aren't any practices going on around the league unless you're playing on Thursday. So there's a lot of interesting things going on right now. Not a lot of important news being deciphered and disseminated. There's a lot of interesting information. And one of the interesting things that you'll see today, if you've been perusing socials, is the fact that Washington has the toughest remaining schedule, perception-wise. Now, again, from a number standpoint, I don't know if that's in fact the case or not, but anybody that's got a couple of eyes, all right, that has eyeballs that can actually see knows that this schedule is brutal. We knew it before the season started. We said, look, these are teams that are good every year. These aren't teams that were good last year, but we're not sure if they're going to be good this year, like us. And we weren't even good last year, but we made it to the postseason. Our schedule was littered with teams that are good every year. Seattle is good every year. Green Bay is good every year. Kansas City is good every year. Buffalo with Josh Allen now, good every year. Tampa Bay with Brady, good every year. You knew what we were getting ourselves into. When the schedule came out, we said we have to get off to a fast start because this schedule is brutal. And then when you watch the Raiders and the Broncos get off to the starts that they've gotten off to, it makes the schedule that much harder. You see what Carolina's doing, makes the schedule that much harder. Those are supposed to be games that we looked at and said, hey, we might be able to get those. All of a sudden, those look like big-time football games. So the schedule is brutal. I don't know if there's a team outside of the NFC East left on the schedule that has a losing record at this moment. Now, again, things can change, and by the time we get to some of these teams, they may be in much worse shape. But as of right now, Broncos, 3-1. Panthers, 3-1. Raiders, 3-1. These are all teams on the schedule. Not to mention Seattle, 2-2. Chiefs, 2-2. And you know that's not going to last with those two teams, okay? Tampa Bay, 3-1. I mean, do I need to go on? Green Bay, 3-1. Okay, you see where this is going. You see where this is trending. That's only 7 games of 13 that remain. Now, 5 of them are in the division, and that's why I said I would much rather have some of those spread out evenly throughout the schedule instead of backloading them, because we may get to the back end of the schedule, and those division games may not matter because we've gotten our ass kicked by the schedule already. I said all of that to say this. Taylor Heinicke has a chance. And this chance is right in front of him. And really, this next game is just as important as any other, because you have to beat the Saints. You don't want to go to 2-3 with Kansas City coming to town and needing to win there to keep yourself at 500. We're playing this dangerous game dancing around 500. Week 1, we should have won. We didn't. We went to 0-1. Week 2, got to have it. Don't want to go to 0-2. We get it. We're 1-1. Week 3, we go to Buffalo. We know it's a kamikaze mission, and we blow the hell up. We go there, and it goes exactly the way that we thought it could go, and it did. We lose. We're 1-2. Got to have this one. Can't fall till 1-3. We get it. We're back to 2-2. You don't want to play this game because unlike the last 2 times where we fell under 500, there was a game that you felt like this is a get-back game. We got one. We can get under our belt and get us back to square one, back to 500. That ain't the case this time. You don't beat New Orleans. You're not going home or you're not staying home, Kansas City coming to town and feeling like, hey, we got a chance to get this one. You're not feeling that way, okay? So if you don't get this game, you're in trouble because Kansas City more likely than not is going to send you to 2-4. And then guess what? You got to pack your bags and then go to Lambeau and take on Aaron Rodgers in that club. You could probably staring at 2-5 in the face at that point. So you've got to get this one against New Orleans to give you some cushion so that if you drop the next 2, you're 3-4, but you got Denver right before the bye, and that's a winnable game to get you back to 500 going into the bye week. So this game upcoming is huge, and how Taylor Heinicke plays in this game going to go a long way in continuing to build confidence in not only himself, but the team building confidence in him and the coaching staff thinking that we got the right guy. He can lead us where we want to go. And again, not just for this season, but potentially next season and beyond. I'm not saying that it's going to stop them from drafting a quarterback, but even if they draft a guy, he may still be the guy. So we'll see what happens. This is a big game, but Heinicke is now in the driver's seat. Even if you are a Taylor Heinicke detractor, you don't believe in him, he's too small, doesn't have a strong enough arm, this, that, and the third. What he's shown you in these 3 starts, 2 out of 3 have been outstanding, 1 in the middle, not so much. But again, he's a young guy. You got to keep it in its proper perspective. He's played well enough for you to at least acknowledge, even if you don't think he's the guy, for you to at least acknowledge, hey, this guy is a gamer and we have something here. Even if that something is an elite backup, we have something here. Let's see where this goes. Let's see where it takes us. It's a big game for Heinicke, and really moving forward, this is his audition. Right now, he's doing a hell of a job in this audition, but it's not over, and he's got a long way to go if he wants the role of starting quarterback of the Washington football team. But right now, the auditions are going well, but he has to continue to play the role of starting quarterback well enough so that they think he should get the script and get the actual title of starting quarterback for the Washington football team. I like where this is heading. Hell, the man even has his own clothing line with his own logo. Hey, get your bread, Taylor. You got the endorsement deal. Now you got your clothing line. Milk this for all it's worth. But the only way it's going to turn fruitful for you is if you perform on the field. He's doing that right now. He's giving himself a chance, and he's giving this team a chance. And you should be excited about that if you're a fan of the Washington football team. So let's get to in other news, and there are quite a number of different topics to discuss. Let's start first with one that I omitted yesterday because there really wasn't any news on that front, and that was the kicker situation. You know, I didn't talk about it purposefully because Ron really dismissed it like he usually does, and he essentially said, that's our kicker, you know, and that's the fact of the matter. You know, that's the end of the discussion, you know, point blank, period. He's our guy. So he wasn't really entertaining any questions about moving on from kicker, but he was on the radio show today, and, you know, Ron makes his rounds on Tuesdays, and he was talking with the Junkies, I think on 106.7 The Fan, and he essentially was asked about the the place kicking situation with Dustin Hopkins, and are you concerned, and is that something you'll, you know, look into in terms of trying to do something? And Ron was a little bit more candid than he was during the press conference, and he said, you know what, look, it's definitely something we have to take a look at, but that we have to take a look at every position. So he tried to generalize it, and he pretty much said, look, you know, he's our guy. You would like him to make every kick, but, you know, that's not the case. But, you know, you want to see more positives than negatives, and we've seen that this season. He's our guy. We still trust him, and, you know, but we are taking a look at that position just like we're taking a look at every single position is essentially what Ron said, and I'm paraphrasing. But in saying that, Washington still went out, and I told you that they had a kicker on the practice squad when the season started, but they got rid of that guy to make space for other positions, and I didn't think he was still here, and he's not still here. So they went out and they signed Chris Blewitt to the practice squad. First of all, do you really want a place kicker with the last name Blewitt as your kicker? Come on now, let's keep it a buck. Do you really want a kicker with the last name Blewitt as your field goal kicker? That's number one. Number two, the guy's never kicked in an NFL game before. Okay, that's number two. Despite him being removed from being a college place kicker in 2016, his last season at Pitt was in 2016. Yet the man has never kicked in an NFL game, was only on an NFL roster in 2019 with the Chicago Bears. It was briefly, he never kicked in a game. And so that's number two. Number three, the guy's field goal percentage while at Pitt during his entire collegiate career, which he got worse every single year from a field goal percentage standpoint, was 69.7. Do you want a guy kicking for us that couldn't even make it at a 70% clip in college, and his statistics got exponentially worse each and every single year from his freshman year all the way to his senior year as a kicker in college? He couldn't even make 70% of his kicks. You want that guy kicking for us? I told you guys this after the game. I've said this a bunch of times after previous games where Dustin's missed kicks. Be careful what you wish for, because there's not a lot out there. And I agree with Ron. I wouldn't make the move. I know I've waffled on this a bunch, but I've told you guys I'm a waffler when it comes to Dustin Hopkins because I don't think there's anything better out there. And I made it abundantly clear to you guys. Be careful what you wish for, because, again, you move on from Hopkins in season, there's not a lot of guys out there that have chops to do it in this league, or they'd have a job. So in my mind, I don't want Chris Blewitt being my new field goal kicker. If that's the best we can do, and I told you, I don't have an issue with Ron sticking with Dustin Hopkins now, because you made your bed, you have to lie in it now. My issue with Ron is that he didn't have a real kicking competition when he should have in the offseason. There should have been 2 or 3 kickers in here. When you got a 90-man roster, you could have brought in 2 kickers, and you could add a legitimate place kicking competition this summer. And if Dustin Hopkins proved to be the best of those 3 guys, then he won the job. I'd feel a lot more comfortable if he had to win this job rather than having it given to him. I know he kicked well down the stretch, and that instilled Ron with a ton of confidence to not open up a competition this year. But I still felt like, especially after the first preseason game, that should have scared Ron to death after that New England game. And he should have said, all right, you know what? It was a mistake not bringing in kickers earlier in the offseason. We're going to bring in some kickers now to camp, and we're going to make Dustin outkick this guy. And if Dustin did it, then he won the job. But that opportunity has come and gone. It was missed. Now that you're in season, I don't know if making a switch at kicker. I just watched Randy Bullock who the Titans just signed like 2 weeks ago. I just watched him miss a kick in overtime that would have given the Titans a tie versus the Jets from about 47 yards out, okay? That's the kind of kicker that if you release Dustin Hopkins, those are the kinds of kickers you're going to pick up off the street, and we're going to lose games because Dustin Hopkins isn't missing, a lot of 47-yard and 37-yard field goals, okay? He's missing extra points, which I understand. It's only 33 yards. He should be able to make that. And he's missing 50-plus yard kicks. But when he's from 47 or 42 or 30, he's making those kicks. You get rid of him, and I'm telling you right now, you're going to miss some kicks that he wasn't missing, and you're going to wish we still had Dustin Hopkins. You can say what you want, and I know a lot of you are going to think I'm crazy, and you're going to criticize me, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. I can take my lumps, but I think Ron's doing the right thing because there isn't anything out there for us to go and get at the field goal kicking position. If Chris Blewitt is the best you can find to add to the practice squad, then you know you're in some trouble if you're looking to move on from Dustin Hopkins. So I'm telling y'all right now, pipe down. Dustin Hopkins is our kicker. You may not love it. All right, you may want to move on from him. We missed that opportunity, and we got to suck it up until the end of the season, I believe. Now, again, if he keeps missing, then you have to make a move. But he's not at that point yet. The man has only missed one field goal this season. One, okay? One kick. He missed 2 extra points, but he's only missed one field goal. He's 5 of 6, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, at this point of the season, okay? So Dustin Hopkins hasn't been terrible, but the extra points, they almost cost us in this game. And Ron's pretty much said, hey, he hasn't cost us yet, so we're good. But I know you guys are saying, he almost cost us, though, but he hasn't. So I'm just reiterating some of the things I've already said, which is, hey, you're not going to be able to do much better than what we've already done. So take it for what it's worth. At the end of the day, I think Dustin Hopkins should still be the kicker of the Washington football team. I know that's an unpopular opinion, and that's fine. I don't mind being out on a limb by myself, but I don't think you're going to do better, and this is proof. Chris Blewitt, guys, 69.7% kick percentage at Pitt. Go look at his percentage. It got worse and worse and worse as he went from a freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. It got worse. Not better, worse. I don't want him anywhere near my field as the field goal kicker of the Washington football team. So, speaking of Washington football team and roster moves, there were some roster moves made today in lieu of the injuries that were sustained on Sunday. I'm anxious to see the injury report for the upcoming game against the Saints. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be the first one where we're going to have a ton of guys on it. I'm not looking forward to seeing it, to be honest with you, but I said I'm not, because I know it's going to be bad. But John Bostic, Torrey McTyer, we talked about this yesterday, done for the season. John Bostic with the torn pec. And you guys are going to get your wish. John Bostic's contract expires after this season. He'll be a free agent in March. For all intents and purposes, he's played his last snap as a Washington football team member. So there you go. Hope you're happy. Torrey McTyer tore his ACL. He's done for the season. So both of those guys were placed on IR officially today. And now that frees up 2 roster spots. So Washington went to their practice squad. A lot of you were asking, is Washington going to do something at linebacker? Here's your answer. Jordan Kuznick and Danny Johnson, obviously a cornerback to fill the void left by Torrey McTyer, and a linebacker, Jordan Kuznick, were elevated from the practice squad to the active roster. So, no, if you were wondering, no, Washington isn't going to do anything at linebacker. They're just going to stick with the guys that they have and that they've been working with this entire time. And so because you moved and elevated 2 guys from the practice squad to the active roster, that freed up 2 practice squad spots. One we just talked about was filled with place kicker Chris Blewitt. The other, I believe, was filled with a wide receiver, Damian something. Let me see. I could probably pull up his name real quick. Damian Willis was the wide receiver that they signed. Don't put too much stock into that, okay? We shouldn't. I won't be shocked if Damian is gone in a week or 2. But at the end of the day, those are the roster moves being made right now. We'll see what the severity is of some of these injuries. Hopefully we get Juice back this week. That'll really help the secondary. And hopefully some of these injuries that were sustained, because I wouldn't be shocked if Jonathan Allen is on the injury report. I wouldn't be shocked if Cole Holcomb's on the injury report, but those guys still play, but they still might be on the injury report because those guys got nicked up in the game as well. We know Sheriff is going to be on the injury report, and he won't play in this game. But the question is, how long? And this, I told you guys, it may be a little while before they make a determination on Sheriff whether to put him on short-term IR or not, because once the swelling goes down, they'll be able to see how bad it is, and then they'll be able to determine, well, maybe he could be back in 2 weeks. You put him on IR, he's done for 3 weeks. Maybe he can be back in 2 weeks, and we don't need to put him up there. So it's going to take a little bit of time for some of these guys. But we had a lot of guys go down, and De'Ami Brown and Cam Sims, I'm thinking those guys are going to be out as well. But again, same thing I just said with Brandon Sheriff. How significant are those injuries? Do you put those guys on IR, or could they be back in a week or two? You don't want to jump the gun, put them on IR, and they're ready to play in 2 weeks. So, but you don't want to hold up a roster spot either if it's not necessary. So there are some interesting decisions that have to be made by the team, and I think they'll ultimately make the smart decision once they get more information on the status of some of these injuries and how severe they are or not. So those are all of your roster updates for this team right now. As I mentioned, we're in a unique spot because we have a chance to go home, get back over 500, and really go into this meat and potatoes of our schedule. The toughest part of our schedule is coming up after this game. The toughest part of our schedule is coming up, where you have Kansas City, Green Bay, Denver, bye week, Tampa Bay. Okay? That 5 weeks, that 5 week portion of our schedule with 4 games against Kansas City, Green Bay, Denver, and Tampa, with a bye week sandwiched in between the Tampa and Denver games, is going to make or break this season more likely than not. If we take care of business today. If we don't take, or this week, if we don't take care of business against New Orleans, then our season might already be spoken for by the time we get to Denver in week number 8. So that's why this game is so huge. Because even you go into the next 2 weeks, if you beat New Orleans, you go into the next 2 games against Kansas City and Green Bay with house money. If you beat them, great. If you don't, you're okay, because you can keep your head above water by going to Denver and winning in week 8 and getting back to 500. That opportunity doesn't exist if you don't beat New Orleans, unless you lose to New Orleans and then you got to go and get one against Green Bay or Kansas City. And again, who really thinks, with the way the defense is playing right now, who really thinks we're going to go and do that? I'm not raising my hand. I can't speak for any of you out there. So, to me, this stretch that we're about to embark upon is the biggest of the season, but it starts on Sunday. It really started last week against Atlanta. If you wanted to go and have a chance to have a season, you had to beat the Falcons. Well, we did that. Okay? I feel like we're in the same exact spot as we were last week. You can't afford to fall to 2-3. 1-3 and 2-3 aren't the same. But in this particular instance, knowing what's coming down the pipeline, yeah, it's pretty much the damn same. Because next week is probably a loss. The week after that is probably a loss. And I don't know what mindset state you're in if you go into Denver riding a 3-game losing streak. I don't know what headspace you're in at that point. Shit might be spiraling out of control then. So this is a massive game. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. We'll take our first look at that game tomorrow. Or actually, we'll talk more about the film, because the NFL finally put the film back on. But it's not up there yet, but it should be up there after this video is done. They should have the film for the Washington game. I can't wait to dive in and break it down. So we'll talk about what I was able to find on the film, offensively and defensively. You'll get studs and duds tomorrow as well if you're a member of the MOBB. So be on the lookout for that. If you're on Patreon for the film, that'll be up tomorrow. Because if they have it up there tonight, which they should, I'm going to start on it tonight and finish it up tomorrow, and that'll be out for your consumption. So I look forward to having all of that content out for you guys tomorrow. If you're an MOBB member, silver or gold, look for studs and duds tomorrow after I've watched the film. And that'll be so much fun, because this will be the first time I've actually had the all 22s to take a look at, to really assess the play of the players on the field. So looking forward to that for sure. But that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Washington Football Nightly. Remember, I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington football team. Looking forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow night live for Washington Football Nightly Live. Lots to discuss, including this massive matchup against the New Orleans Saints, Taylor Heinicke, his ascension, and how far can he take this, and the field goal kicking position, and the roster with all these injuries, and so much more. We'll dive into it tomorrow and then some. Looking forward to your comments down in the comment section of this video. I know you're going to kill me for my Dustin Hopkins take. That is perfectly fine. I already know what's coming, but I'm trying to warn you guys, the grass is not always greener on the other side. If this is the best we can do, Chris Blewitt, then we blew it as an organization. So I'm going to go ahead and glide to the side and allow you to enjoy the rest of your afternoon, evening, night, whenever you watch this, morning. And we'll chop it up live on Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. for Washington Football Nightly. Until then, you guys have a good one. Take care.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20.